Let's hope we can do to other cities pretty soon from here in Lagos. Now, I want to switch gears to talk about fiscal viability of states, given the issue of the argument, the conundrum of our wage, or what you call minimum wage of workers. The organized labor is saying they want 615, which is not their barest minimum. At least that's a proposal, 615,000 naira for the lowest worker in the system. Well, the federal government, they are still negotiating. We've not heard what the federal government is proposing yet. But how viable are these states to even meet basic obligations? That's what we'll talk about today on the program. We're being joined by the co-founder and director of BudgIT, Mr. Seun Onigbinde. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
It's a pleasure being here today.
Before we talk about fiscal viability and all the numbers, I would like to have your take on this. I'm sure you have fuel or you bought fuel. I don't know whether you have fuel in your car.
I'm on the last bar.
Just your initial impression of what is playing out with, given what the chairman from Ore Depot had mentioned, what's going on in the entire chain.
Yeah, in my own view, I think the conflicting role of NNPC and the lack of transparency around the subsidy regime is the major problem we're facing. I mean, we can wrap it around logistics, we can put it around that there are delays, but we've made some changes in recent months. And then we stopped the swap process. So we've cut out a whole lot of private investors. So NNPC is mainly taking on the burden. And that would just create loads of inefficiencies. And considering the fact that I don't think we are paying full market price for the fuel. So I think NNPC is scrambling around to make sure that at least they can ease this process. I feel it might still take a few time before the curve is smoothened. But I think we are facing those twin challenges. NNPC's confusing role. It's a state oil company. It's a private limited company. You can't say with the 6.5 dozen. And also, you also have the challenge that the swap deal was stopped, so NNPC has to pay cash. And then I've spoken to some of the importers, and they think NNPC has not been meeting its obligation as at when due. So there's a bit of lag in terms of imports of this finished product. But I feel like that they will cover it up.
Well, let's leave that for now. Let's now talk about this issue of viability of states vis-a-vis this argument over what should be the minimum wage. We've seen some states raise it to 70, others have raised it to 40. Everybody trying to say, this is how much I can pay. But Labour has gone way higher than $500,000 as their initial proposal. And we don't know where that will land eventually at the end of the day. But from your report of State of States that was published last year, we could clearly see from the data that over 70–75% of the country's subnational are dependent on FAAC.
Yep.
I always say without FAAC, a lot of them will go belly up. How do we reconcile this argument of minimum wage as against the issue of states not being viable? Where do we find this balance?
We have to also understand that states, it's an incentive structure, you know. If every month there's a 1.5 trillion naira to be shared at the center, because the money doesn't belong to the federal government, it's a federation money. And I am able to receive around 8 billion, 6 billion, depending on the size of my state. The incentive might not be that strong to be more creative, or to think much more deeply about how do I expand opportunity for our internal generated revenue. Because we know that a whole lot of states cannot, I mean, if you look at the personnel costs for most states, even on current structure, there are only around 18 states that their IGR can pay their personnel costs. So if you don't have FAAC, or you FAAC even doing this by 30%, you'll be in crisis significantly. So we are in a situation where most states would continue to depend on FAAC until maybe there's an incentive structure to say maybe over time you have 13% derivation, you might have 15% derivation. So you might quietly see that the money that you are receiving from the center is slipping and is reducing gradually. And you have to focus on your inherent advantages. And we know all the states have it. Some can choose to make it mining. Some can choose to make it agriculture. Some can choose to do tourism. Some can choose to do technology. But a whole lot of times seems that our short electoral cycle is also not helping. Somebody's there in 4 years, and like someone made the tweet, it takes around 5 years to get like a cocoa industry to fully be up. Cash industry might even be less than the oil palm industry might be around the same time. So you're a governor, and you practically are struggling to get 6 months, a year to settle, 2 years to get work done. Another 1 year you're chasing re-election. When you chase re-election, you might really not pay enough attention again. The other problem is that the states are not industrializing quick as they should. Apart from Port Harcourt, Rivers, Delta, Bayelsa, the ones who have the oil production unit, and Lagos and Ogun, you will find that most states, the industrial environment is practically dead, you know. And it's just because there are challenges with energy, there are challenges with trade facilitation. So in my own view, we have to figure out a way to incentivize states to be more productive. And because when we talk about Nigeria, it's still a product of 36 states and FCT. So until we get the state issues fixed in terms of making them productive engines, in their own specialized way, we might not be able to get out of this challenge.
Quite a lot to reflect on, but let's touch on these points. From your report, 15 states are still unable to pay even the 30,000 naira minimum wage. And some of these states, I'm not quite sure now, maybe on the index C that you highlighted in the report, they prioritize capital expenditure over human development. How do you reconcile that? Is it realistic for these states to continue to prioritize capital expenditure, and yet they're unable to pay workers' salary?
There are two options. There are two questions there. One is the quality of the capital expenditure. Because if I buy a Hilux van and a brand new car for the governor and the speaker and traditional rulers, that's what's part of capital expenditure. Any form of asset that goes beyond the life cycle of the budget, the fiscal cycle of the budget, is capital expenditure. So when we also talk about capital expenditure, I know it's a limitation of our own report, but it also means that we must also interrogate deeply which kind of capital expenditure it is. The other part is also, it's not a dichotomy to say recurrent is bad or operational cost is bad and capital is good. Because if you build a school, you have to pay teachers. If you build an hospital, you have to hire doctors. So both are necessary. There just has to be a balance in some sort of way. And what you see is that even in Nigeria, operational cost or recurrent expenditure takes precedence over capital expenditure. You have to pay workers. I mean, roads also are important, but sometimes those things, the procurement cycle is much more longer and it takes a while before you can finally get it up. So, but states not being able to pay salaries, at this point, everybody's getting a lot more money from FAAC because of this whole exchange rate devaluation that has happened. But it also means that states are not paying what they're meant to pay to cushion that effect, because you now do what they call a wage award system. So if I'm earning, if 35,000 naira, 70,000, the person that was earning 300,000 naira is 335,000. I mean, that's socialism or communism. I don't know how to put it. It does not just work at all in terms of living wage. So I feel like I don't think Labour has been pushy enough. I don't think they have been doing it as they should, because you've removed first subsidy for almost a year now. I mean, the minimum wage has to remain what it is. I don't think the wage award system is our deal in any way. And that's why we're saying that before you remove minimum wage, there's some conversations that should have happened. There's some palliative measures.
Subsidy, you mean?
Yeah, before you remove the subsidy, sorry, I mean, there's some conversations that should have happened. And if those conversations have happened, the major part of that is the minimum wage, to agree with Labour. Because I watched your analysis, where you said $98 was what it was when it was 33,000 naira, 30,000 naira. Now, if you put it at 1,200, you're doing at least 110,000, 120,000 naira. So my own thing is to even at 150,000 might be a good place to start. I also understand the limitations of government. But the current Nigeria of today, a minimum wage might be less than 150,000 naira. Is not enough. And that's even for states that even maybe low cost, or states like maybe in the north or maybe in the hinterland, but maybe it gets much more worse in Lagos, Delta, Port Harcourt, where the cost of living is much more higher.
You know, we're going to just properly contextualize this, because I know that the governors have been meeting, and it looks like they're foot dragging. on what to put forward. And I imagine there's still a lot of argument within them that you can't say you can pay more. Do you know my own state? But on the outside, everybody's quiet and making it look as though, oh, we're going to make a decision together when we all know the peculiarities. So on the one hand, I don't know how people are speaking to their state governors to say, let us know our state of states, in this case. Can we afford it? Is that conversation happening at the state level? And I think you talked about Labour at that level perhaps not doing enough. Labour will say, well, we put out 650,000 naira anyway. What more can we do? We set the bar really high. So should we begin to press the governors more now to speak to these issues? Because from what we have seen so far, they've been very quiet.
Yes, and I think that's where the pressure needs to come from. But, you know, a lot of people are also waiting for the federal government to signal. You know, I think there was a story recently about Lagos State saying 70,000. They had to retract that story and say, no, our minimum wage is not at 70,000. We were just making a case that someone on 35,000 now hence 70,000.
Well, the idea was, what they were doing was the addition, which was called for earlier in the year, and not the minimum wage, essentially.
Because the minimum wage must have a sliding scale. I mean, it's not just that you go hard 35,000 on everybody. It also means that someone maybe on 200,000 now gets maybe somewhere around 280, 300,000. So and that has not happened. So my own view is specifically that the federal government also has to signal, you know, and I guess I don't think the 615,000 with Labour is reasonable. I like the fact that they made it clear, they broke it down and say this is how someone will spend 615,000.
I just wanted to quickly refer to this map because I need also call out states as much as we can. Looking at this map, the color regardless, which of the states do you think are well and able to pay something consequential, and which other states?
And what is consequential?
Yeah. We need to speak to this.
Yeah, so
you need to put a figure to that consequential, so that
so if we say like a minimum wage of 150,000, because and you want to know, because there are some states now that still pay around 20,000. Yeah, that's just the truth. But you find that the states in the south are always personnel cost heavy. I mean, Delta, Bayelsa, you know, Edo also recently has its personnel costs grow a whole lot. Then you also have Rivers, for some reason, has not paid. You will be shocked that the personnel cost for Rivers is less than Delta.
Come on.
Yeah, and so I don't know if the previous governor has been paying as he should have paid. Because also, but you also worry about state like Bayelsa, for the size of the state, the size of civil service, its personnel cost or its operational cost is just too high. States like legacy states like Oyo also have huge personnel costs too. And it could be as high as around 12 to 13 billion naira per month.
Does that translate to the fact that they are paying more?
It does not translate together. I mean, it's just
to be clear, because people will hear
that. The size of the civil service.
Okay.
The size of the civil service in those places, number of schools they have, number of hospitals they have, even in places like Osun. Let's not forget, Osun had his own problem for years, and it's just now getting back on its feet.
Sorry, if I may comment just very briefly. The implication of this personnel cost being heavy, does it mean that they are unable to pay the new minimum wage?
They might not be able to pay a significant jump on the minimum wage. If you put it around 120, 150, I doubt they're going to be able to pay that. If the scales are done properly. I mean, if it means that they might not be able to pay that. Because if you're heavy on you're doing around 10, 12 billion already per month, and by the time you put your FAAC and IGR there together, maybe you're already around 50. You're doing just around 15 billion in a month. So where's the extra money going to come from?
So let's address one big elephant in the room. I'm processing it, and I'll need your answers because you have the data. Where's the problem here? Does this call for that vexed issue of resource control, or governors are just plain non-creative, some of them?
Like I mentioned, there are two problems. The incentive is the first problem. I get money at federal government at the center. I can borrow to fix my capital expenditure as I go on the way. Then there might not be huge incentive to aggressively grow the IGR as should be. That's the first problem. The second problem, we have a data problem as a country. I mean, in the U.S., you see that the data with the federal and the state, they are all working in the same bucket. So as you pay federal taxes, you pay state taxes in some way. But in Nigeria, the federal government is not involved in the personal income tax. So it looks like you're running two data systems at the end of the day. The states might not even have capacity to collect efficiently the personal income tax. So you have a problem where you're supposed to run one single booking, both individual and corporate, are in a single funnel. And you're now basically be able to use data to see that who's paying less and who's paying more and all of that. And that may even make you make tweaks to the personal income tax to say, okay, I need to raise for this bracket, I need to lower for this bracket. But from an holistic point as a country, you can't see that. Then you also now have a problem, at the state where the industrial capabilities are not there. That's why we say when your state is trying to get a gas pipeline, and if you're going on Ibadan Road, you see these pipelines happening now. It's just because they also seen that Ogun has benefited significantly from that.
So I don't know whether you answered my question direct. So should we think of restructuring as soon as possible? That's
the best way, honestly. I've always been an advocate of gradual restructuring. No, because these states in the South Belt, they deserve to take more, in my own view. Unless they take more, we will not get other states to step up. So if we are doing 13% derivation, why can't we build a constitutional provision? Then we go 17% in 4 years. Then we go 25% in 8 years. They also make sure that we put some accountability systems around them so that we don't, because we've done too much also in that environment. We have the Ministry of Niger Delta, we have NDDC, we have the derivation funds, but we also know that the fortune of those regions have not significantly improved too. But we also, for the benefit of the country, I think it's something we need to try.
Okay, so let's manage our time now. Give us maybe 5 more states that can or cannot pay the minimum wage based on this map.
Lagos can pay more minimum wage, more than what he's currently paying, even though, and Ogun, I think, possibly. Also, Ogun has a significant IGR.
Ogun has a lot of companies.
So, yeah, so they can. Then you have also Edo, can also pay. Delta can also pay. Then you also have, if you go up in the north, then Kano also have some robust here. Then Kaduna, the weight of its external loans is coming down on it, including even Lagos too. Because but Kaduna and Kano will also try. Gombe also has a very small personal cost in terms of management, and I think to some extent
Delta has a huge debt burden too.
Yeah, it has a huge debt burden, but because of the huge, they've received the most of FAAC allocation in recent years.
8/36.
Yeah, those ones are ones that will be certain that they can. If you take a minimum wage higher than what it is, if you take the FAAC down, if the FAAC goes down significantly, most of the states will not be able to do
That's just about a quarter.
Yeah. Yeah,
so you see what we're saying.
And just to add, some of the states that you pointed out have huge personnel costs. There are states that are receiving FAAC allocation, so that leaves a huge question mark on financial prudence in those states.
Yeah, because also, I mean, there's a lot of financial challenges, especially in the South states. And in the north, the operational cost is small, and I think they're paying too small. I think the lot of questions are beginning to be asked about that recently.
Mr. Sean, there's a lot to talk about.
So we need to piece.
We can't even. I think as at the last report, Bayelsa was the highest dependent on FAAC, over 90%. We're hoping to see those numbers, whether they've improved or not. That will come out this year. Sean Igwinde, co-founder and director of BudgIT. Thank you so much for your insights on the program.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Well, you see it for yourself. I'm sure you've looked at your state, maybe ask your governors and local government chairmen what exactly are they doing with the monies they have to help you position yourself properly. But when we come back after this break, we'll talk security. Join us again.